At just 29 years old, Kodak Black has become the subject of concern across the rap industry. Between his legal troubles, ongoing battles with addiction, and increasingly troubling behavior, more and more rappers are speaking out about the man they've been watching behind the scenes, and what they're saying paints a pretty sad picture. Let me catch you up. Kodak Black was arrested for allegedly trafficking MDMA in Florida, according to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. That alone would be news, but it wasn't just the charge that set the internet on fire, it was the detail. The arrest stemmed from an incident at the Children's Safety Village on Fairvilla Road, where police were investigating calls about gunshots and found two vehicles there. Let that sit for a second. The Children's Safety Village, a place literally named after protecting kids, that's where the police found the pink bag. That's where this story starts. Officers arrived to find several people gathered around. Two vehicles, including a BMW SUV and a Lamborghini SUV. Police said officers smelled burnt cannabis coming from the BMW and conducted a search of the vehicle where they found cannabis and a pink pill that tested positive for MDMA. Now here's where it gets interesting. During the investigation, Capri, who is currently living in Fort Lauderdale, approached officers and watched the search. He didn't leave. He didn't stay quiet. He walked up to cops, who were currently searching cars connected to a shooting call, and he watched. Authorities said FDLE officials later confirmed the substance recovered from the bag was MDMA, weighing approximately 25 grams. 25 grams. Based on the investigation, Orlando police sought a warrant charging Capri with trafficking in MDMA between 14 and 200 grams. That's a felony in Florida, a serious one. Not a possession charge, not a misdemeanor, a trafficking charge. And the moment the internet found out, the conversation exploded. According to the police report, everyone on scene was asked if the bag or its contents belonged to any of them, and all denied ownership, including Capri. When Capri was informed of the money in the bag, he attempted multiple times to have the money turned over to him, claiming it belonged to his business. Capri, however, would not claim the bag or any of its contents. So he didn't want the bag, but he wanted the cash inside it. And that detail, that one detail, became the thing everyone was pointing at. It's the kind of move that doesn't look good, no matter how you frame it. According to the affidavit, the bag was the same one seen on Black's Instagram account, along with other paraphernalia like a pair of scissors and a lighter. So the police weren't working blind. They had the social media receipts, they had the photos, they had the timeline. And when the FDLE lab results came back months later confirming the MDMA, the warrant was issued and Kodak was booked. Capri entered a written plea of not guilty and asked for a jury trial on Thursday. He also waived appearing in person at a future arraignment hearing in state court. His bond was set at $75. The state requested that in light of his occupation and lack of ties to Orlando, that the bond actually be increased, and one of the conditions be that he surrender his passport. That tells you something about how the state views this case and this defendant. In response, the rapper's legal team said through laughs he is a proud Haitian American, but he is an American. He has a U.S. passport. He doesn't have any plans on leaving the country. We've faced cases that are 10 times this case, and I've won, by the way. The defense team was confident. The prosecution was firm, and the internet wasn't waiting for a verdict. The news even caught the attention of Boosie Badazz, who made a remark about the situation on Instagram. He seemed to be incredibly worried about the 28-year-old's well-being, despite whatever issues they've had in the past. "Dude, need help, FRFR," he declared. 3 words, no punctuation, except the urgency of caps lock, from a man who has had his own legal wars, his own prison time, his own years of watching the system chew up people he grew up around. Boosie wasn't clowning. He was genuinely scared for someone he's argued with publicly more than once. Lil TJ had been in Kodak's corner the previous year, when Kodak appeared on Kai Cenat's Twitch stream and the internet lost its mind over his behavior. Lil TJ stood up for him. "Stop looking at Yak like he a weirdo," he said. "No, sometimes that's how rappers act. In our society, that's how we act." But even TJ's defense landed on rocky ground because it wasn't really a defense. It was a normalization of something a lot of people felt wasn't normal at. All in a disappointed rant on Instagram Live, Boosie had already claimed that Kodak has no morals or principles. "That Ngia Yak fucked me up," he said. And then months later, when the trafficking arrest dropped, Boosie was back, not with anger this time, but with something closer to grief. That shift from frustration to fear tells a story on its own. The story of watching someone spiral and not knowing how to stop it. That's the story we're in right now. And to understand where it's going, you have to understand where it started. Kodak Black, born Diuson Octave on June 11, 1997, in Pompano Beach, Florida, was raised in the Golden Acres, public housing projects, by his Haitian immigrant mother, and his early life was marked by adversity. His father wasn't around. His father abandoned the family early on, leaving his mother, Marceline Octave, to raise him in the Golden Acres public housing projects. That's where he was planted. A housing project in South Florida where money was short and the streets were the first teacher most kids ever knew. He began rapping at 6 years old and adopted the nickname Black. By 12, he joined the rap group Brutal Youngs. 6 years old, a kid who couldn't even properly read, yet was already reaching for music as the thing that would save him. Kodak Black frequently participated in brawls and breaking and entering with his friends. He was expelled from school in 5th grade for fighting and was arrested for auto theft while in middle school. The streets didn't wait for him to grow up. They pulled him in early, and he went willingly, partly because there wasn't much of a choice. His career took off with the release of his 2014 breakout single, No Flockin', which showcased his raw talent and unique delivery. The song gained traction online and caught the attention of Atlantic Records. He was 17 years old, still a kid, but the trajectory was already clear. Raw talent, real pain, and a world watching to see what he'd do with both. In 2015, he signed with Atlantic Records and released several mixtapes, including Project Baby and Heart of the Projects, solidifying his presence in the hip-hop scene. His debut studio album, Painting Pictures, debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart. The album featured the hit single Tunnel Vision, which peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 6, A Kid from the Golden Acres projects in Pompano Beach, cracking the top 10 of the most competitive chart in American music. His second album, Dying to Live, was released in 2018 and debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. The album featured the hit single Z's with Travis Scott and Offset, which reached number 2 on the Hot 100. Number 1 album. Number 2 single. By any measure, by any metric you want to use, Kodak Black had made it. He had taken everything that could have destroyed him, poverty, abandonment, the streets, the system, and turned it into music that millions of people connected with. That was the promise. That was what his fans saw. But underneath every chart position, every platinum plaque, every sold-out show, there was a current running in the opposite direction. A pattern that nobody, not his label, not his fans, not even the people who loved him could seem to interrupt. And that pattern didn't start with this latest arrest. It started before the music ever got big. It started the moment the law first looked his way. Legal trouble has followed Kodak Black for so long that it's become difficult to talk about his career without talking about arrests alongside it. That's not a talking point. It's just the math. Look at the timeline, and you'll see every time there's a musical peak, there's a legal valley running parallel to it. Part of that is because the interruptions never really stopped. Just as momentum starts building again, another mugshot or court case pulls the conversation away from the music and back to the same questions about whether Kodak can stay out of trouble. Feuds with other rappers, tense or alleged intoxicated live streams, erratic interviews, and social media behavior left fans debating whether they're watching authenticity or self-destruction. And that debate has never really been resolved. Even the people defending him aren't fully sure what they're defending. They're defending a talent. They're defending a person. But the behavior that surrounds that talent keeps getting harder to separate from it. Listeners view him as a gifted rapper of his generation, someone whose raw honesty comes through no matter how chaotic his public life becomes. The chaos and the honesty aren't separate things with Kodak. They come from the same place, the same wound. The same kid who taught himself to rap in a housing project in Pompano Beach because that was the only door he could. See, that led somewhere else. The question that the rappers talking about him are really asking isn't whether he's talented. Everyone agrees on that. The question is whether the life he's living is going to let him survive long enough for that talent to matter. Since breaking out of Pompano Beach, Florida, when he was just 18, Kodak Black attracted listeners with a sound that harks back to the dirty South of the 90s. There's something about his voice, that distinctive, slightly slurred delivery. That sounds like it's coming from somewhere underground, somewhere raw and unfiltered. You can't manufacture that. You can't train it into a studio vocalist. It either comes from something real or it doesn't come at all. And with Kodak, it clearly came from something real. Kodak Black was born in Pompano Beach, Florida, the son of Haitian immigrant Marceline Octave. He spent his youth reading thesauruses and dictionaries to further his vocabulary. This is the detail that always catches people off guard. The kid who was kicked out of school in 5th grade for fighting was, at the same time, teaching himself language by reading dictionaries. That's not a contradiction. That's a person trying to build something from nothing using whatever tools were around. A thesaurus is a tool. The streets were also tools. He learned both. But here's the thing about tools. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use it to break things. The education he gave himself through music, through language, through those early mixtapes, that was the hammer being used to build. The decisions that kept landing him in courtrooms and jails in the middle of law enforcement investigations, that was the same hammer swinging the other direction. And the people watching from the outside, the rappers speaking up, the fans losing sleep, the attorneys answering calls at midnight, they all see the same hammer. They just can't agree on how to take it out of his hands. So when the drug trafficking arrest dropped in 2026, it wasn't surprising to the people who'd been paying attention. What was surprising was the timing. His most recent album, Just Getting Started, was released in late 2025 and reached number 77 on the Billboard 200 chart. The album title is almost cruel in retrospect. Just getting started, and then the arrest, and then the bond hearing, and then the headlines. Over time, the controversy stopped feeling separate from his public image and became part of it. At the same time, none of it has fully stopped his career. Kodak still has a loyal fan base. That loyalty is real. It's not delusion. It's not blind faith. It's people who hear themselves in his music and don't want to let go of that. They don't want the artist to fall because falling means the music goes with him. But the rappers speaking on him aren't just fans. They're peers, people who've watched from inside the industry, people who know what it looks like when someone has everything they need to make it and is still somehow running in the direction of nothing. That's what makes the commentary from people like Boosie different from a random critic. Boosie has done prison time. He knows what certain roads look like and what he sees in Kodak, what he keeps saying publicly even when Kodak pushes back is that the road Yak is on leads somewhere he doesn't want to watch him go. Footage that appeared to show Kodak Black nodding off on stage surfaced online, sparking concern among fans. Kodak Black. Fans had been expressing concerns about the rapper for quite some time. A worrisome video of him surfaced online, leading to discussion about his current condition. In the video shared by Academics TV, he appeared to be nodding off on stage in Texas as a couple of crew members tried to hold him up. Social media users speculated that this was a result of drug or alcohol abuse, though it was unconfirmed. Crew members holding him up on stage in front of a crowd that came to see him perform. That image did something to the conversation that a courtroom document couldn't do on its own. It made the abstract personal. You can read a charging document and feel distant from it, but watching someone you listen to in your car, in your headphones on your way to work, watching that person get propped up by handlers while a crowd tries to understand what they're seeing, that lands differently. His attorney recently claimed that he's off the drugs following a concerning video that surfaced of him eating chicken in the middle of the street. An attorney having to issue a statement about his client eating chicken in traffic. That's where we are. That's the level of concern that surrounds this person right now. Not just legal concern, not just financial concern, basic human concern. Is he okay? Is he going to be okay? Those are the questions, and the answers have been getting harder and harder to find. Kodak himself recently rallied against the criticism and speculation during an Instagram live session, deciding to take aim at everyone who thinks he needs help or is going through something right now. At the end of the day, he just wants to be left in peace and enjoy his time in the spotlight whenever he directs it, not when others pile on him. That's his position, and there's something honest about it. He's not unaware that people are talking. He knows the videos are circulating. He knows the articles are being written. He's not confused about his own public image. He just doesn't agree with the framing. He doesn't see himself the way the outside world sees him. When fans appeared to see him take a Percocet pill on Kai Cenat's stream, he responded, "I take one perk and y'all be so fing butthurt." Though fans seemed genuinely concerned and suggested he go to rehab, Black took their comments negatively and blocked many users. Blocking people who express concern is not the same as being okay. And everyone who's ever watched someone they love struggle with something they can't control knows exactly what that dynamic looks like. You reach out, they block you. You reach out again, they call you a hater. You stop reaching out, and then something happens, and you replay every moment wondering if there was something different. You could have said, that's the energy in the room right now among the people watching Kodak Black's life play out in real time. He even took another pill while addressing the pill controversy on Instagram Live. That's the move that silenced a lot of people who were still on his side. Not because it confirmed anything definitively, but because of what it communicated. If you're being accused of having a problem, and your response to that accusation is to do the thing you're being accused of doing on camera, live, in front of everyone, you're either proving you don't have a problem, or you're proving you don't care if you do. And neither of those possibilities is particularly reassuring. Kodak often comes across like someone operating without much of a filter between thought and action, which is part of why people react to him so strongly in either direction. That filter, or the lack of it, is both his greatest asset and his most dangerous liability. The no-filter version of Kodak Black is the one who makes music that feels like open-heart surgery, that makes people feel less alone in their own pain. But the no-filter version of Kodak Black is also the one making decisions in real time on Instagram Live, in a parking lot at the Children's Safety Village that keep landing him back in the middle of a legal system that has been circling him since he was a teenager, and the rappers talking about him, Boosie, Lil TJ, the voices that have spoken up across the years. They're not just gossiping, they're processing something that affects all of them. Because when an artist with that kind of talent from that kind of background ends up here at 28, staring down felony number 12, it makes everyone who shares that world ask a question they don't always want to answer. How does this happen? And can anything stop it? There's a version of Kodak Black's legal history that reads like a mistake. One bad night, one bad decision, the kind of thing that could happen to anyone. But that's not what the record shows. What the record shows is a cycle, grinding, relentless, repetitive, that began before his first charting single and has never fully stopped. For those trying to keep up, here's a comprehensive list of Kodak Black's run-ins with the law. Except there's too many to list casually. That's the point. There are too many. Let's trace it properly. His 2019 sentence stemmed from a May 2019 arrest for indicating on paperwork that he was not under indictment while trying to purchase firearms. At the time, he was out on bond for sexual assault charges in South Carolina. So he wasn't just lying on a gun form. He was lying on a gun form while simultaneously out on bond for a separate sexual assault case in another state. Two separate legal storms at the same time. And he was still making music, still performing, still putting out projects that landed on the charts. In November 2019, Black pleaded guilty to lying on his background paperwork to purchase guns in Florida, telling the judge, "I do take full responsibility for my mishap." While initially facing up to 10 years in prison, he ultimately was sentenced to 46 months on federal weapons charges 46 months, nearly 4 years, for a charge that his own attorney described as a nonviolent offense. His attorney Bradford Cohen suggested that his sentence was unduly harsh for a nonviolent offense. Kodak Black gets sentenced to 46 months for lying on a government form. Cohen said, the disbelief audible even in print. The federal sentence was only one half of the legal equation at that point. The other half was still waiting in South Carolina. In February 2016, Black had been accused of sexually assaulting a young woman in a hotel room. In Florence, South Carolina, almost 5 years later, he still faced a charge of sexual misconduct in South Carolina. And for that case, he was looking at a potential 30-year sentence, 30 years, for someone who was 18 when the alleged incident occurred. The weight of that number is almost incomprehensible when you stack it next to the image of a teenager from the Golden Acres Projects who was reading dictionaries to get better at rap battles. The girl said the rapper attacked her at a hotel room after a show, biting her on the neck and breast and continuing even after she told him to stop. The girl reported the attack to a school nurse who called police a school nurse, meaning the victim was a student, meaning she was young, enough that her first instinct after the alleged attack was to go back to school and tell a school nurse. That detail matters. It's not buried in the record by accident. It's part of why the case followed him for 5 years and why South Carolina prosecutors didn't let it go even after the federal sentence was commuted on. April 28, 4 months after being granted commutation by former President Donald Trump, Kodak Black appeared in court to face charges of rape and sexual assault stemming from a 2016 incident in South Carolina. During his court hearing, the rapper entered a plea deal, pleading guilty to a lesser charge of first-degree assault and battery. The original charge was rape. He pled it down. That's how the legal system works. Deals are struck, charges are reduced, and the person walks away with something less than what prosecutors originally wanted. Kodak Black was sentenced to 10 years suspended to 18 months, probation under the conditions of the plea deal. The victim in the case watched the plea online, and Black spoke to her. "I apologize this happened, and I'm hopeful we can all move forward," he said. That statement, carefully worded, legally cautious, doesn't fully apologize and doesn't fully deny. It's the kind of language that attorneys craft for situations where the truth is complicated and the legal exposure is real. It does the minimum, and the minimum in a case involving a teenage girl and a school nurse and a hotel room is a hard thing to sit with. The hip-hop community's response to the South Carolina case was complicated. There were people who defended Kodak, who argued the charges were politically motivated, who pointed to the reduced charge as proof that the original accusation was overblown. And there were people who looked at the timeline, the age of the alleged victim, the circumstances, the 5-year gap between the alleged incident and the plea, and came to very different conclusions. There's no shortage of controversy surrounding Kodak Black, but the South Carolina case was the one that cut deepest because it wasn't about a gun form or a traffic stop. It was about who he was behind closed doors. Shortly after his sentence was commuted, the rapper dropped his lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons over alleged abuse he suffered while serving time at the Kentucky high-security prison Big Sandy. The lawsuit claimed guards beat him up, tortured him, and placed him in 4-point restraints for hours on end with no access to a bathroom. So, while Kodak was navigating the South Carolina case on one side, he was also claiming that the federal prison system had physically abused him. Both things can be true. Both things can be happening to the same person at the same time. That's the thing about Kodak's story. That makes it genuinely tragic. The circumstances that surround him are rarely simple. In January 2021, he was granted clemency by Donald Trump. At the time, he was serving a 46-month sentence for falsifying information on federal forms to buy firearms from a South Florida gun shop. The commutation was Trump's final act in office. One of 143 pardons and commutations issued in the final hours, and the decision landed like a grenade in hip-hop culture. The White House cited Kodak's philanthropic efforts, such as his educational and charity events for children and underprivileged families, as well as his ties to religious leaders, as reasons for his commutation. The White House's official statement about Kodak Black's commutation noted the support of Gucci Mane, Lil Yachty, Lil Pump, Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, and more. That's a list of names that tells you everything about the reach of his influence and the loyalty of people who believed in him. Gucci Mane, a man who served serious federal time himself and came out the other side, co-signing Kodak's release. That's not a small endorsement. That's a man who knows what it costs. He caught significant flack after he received a pardon from Donald Trump during the last days of his presidency. Although Yak managed to get his sentence commuted, his fans didn't agree with his alignment and support for the former president. The political optics, a black rapper from a Haitian immigrant family publicly thanking Donald Trump, fractured his fan base in ways that took months to fully understand. Some fans saw it as gratitude, others saw it as something more transactional, more troubling. The debate about what the commutation meant and what it cost him in terms of credibility never fully resolved, because there are genuinely two things happening here. There's the man who hands out 5-0 turkeys on Thanksgiving, who goes back to his old neighborhood, who gives kids in Pompano Beach something real on the holidays. And there's the man who's been arrested more times than most people, have had job interviews, who ends up in court over things that shouldn't be happening at this stage of a career, at this stage of a life. The pardon notes that Kodak Black paid for school children's notebooks, supplies to daycare centers, and food for the hungry, and donated $50 for restaurants in his hometown of Pompano Beach, Florida. Those aren't small gestures. Those are the actions of someone who genuinely wants to give back something. Someone who looks at where he came from and doesn't want to pretend it doesn't exist. Through his charity, the Zachariah McQueen Foundation, Black partnered with the Palm Beach County Outreach Group, A Different Shade of Love, and handed out roughly 200 free AC units in South Florida, including in Black's hometown Pompano Beach and Miami's Little Haiti. Free air conditioning units in South Florida, where the heat is the kind of thing that kills people who can't afford to cool their homes. He understood that because he lived that. When handing out AC units, he said, "I know you feel the scorching heat right now. Where I come from, the projects I come from, it's like, I remember that feeling." That line, quiet, specific, direct, contains more emotional truth than most artists manage in an entire album. He remembers the feeling. He remembers what it cost to not have air conditioning in a Florida summer. He's not performing generosity for the cameras. He's responding to a memory that never left. And yet, the Zachariah McQueen Foundation exists. The turkey drives happen, the AC units get delivered, and the arrests keep coming. The Florida Highway Patrol pulled Black over because he was driving a purple SUV with window tints that appeared darker than the legal limit. They detected a marijuana smell and then searched the SUV and found a small clear bag with 31 white tablets and almost $75, zero in cash. The tablets were later identified as oxycodone. That's a different arrest, a different year, a different drug, but the same pattern. Stopped for something small, searched, found with something bigger, arrested, charged. The cycle resets. In the Broward painkiller pill case, Kodak allegedly violated his bail terms by failing to show up to a drug test and later testing positive for fentanyl, missing a court-mandated drug test and then testing positive for one of the most dangerous substances on the planet while out on bail, while the public is already watching. That's not a secret spiral, that's an open one. That's someone who is either deeply struggling or deeply committed to a lifestyle that doesn't give ground to consequences. The shooting in West Hollywood was another chapter that could have ended everything. Kodak was shot in the leg in West Hollywood, California, after a fight involving members of his entourage broke out near a restaurant where pop singer Justin Bieber was having an after-party. 3 others were injured in the shooting. According to Los Angeles police, the suspect fled the scene, shot in the leg. Justin Bieber's after-party, a fight that wasn't necessarily his, but found him anyway, because that's what happens when you move through the world in a certain way, surrounded by a certain energy. The bullets don't care about chart positions. Kodak's album, Back for Everything, was released within 2 weeks of the shooting, debuting at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart. He dropped an album 2 weeks after getting shot, not because he had to, not because the label made him. He dropped it because that's what he does. He keeps moving. He keeps making music. He keeps releasing. And every time he does, every time there's a new project and a new chart position, people think maybe this time, maybe this is the turn, maybe the music wins. But then the cycle comes back around, and the people watching, the rappers who've known him from the beginning, the fans who followed every album, the attorneys who keep answering calls, they're all waiting for the moment when the music genuinely wins, when the talent finally pulls hard enough in the right direction to change the momentum of the life around it. And every new arrest pushes that moment further away. Even concern around his well-being has become part of the conversation. Fans have repeatedly speculated about what's really going on behind the social media posts, behind the Instagram lives, behind the performances. Is he okay? Is there anyone around him who's actually looking out for him, rather than looking out for their cut? Those are uncomfortable questions, because they imply something about the system around an artist, the managers, the label people, the hangers-on, that nobody in that world wants to examine too closely. After several run-ins with the law, perhaps he's determined to leave his legal trouble in the past, as evidenced by a pep talk he shared with a youth football team about the dangers of drugs in 2024, and the honorary key he received from the city of Pompano Beach for his charitable efforts in the community. An honorary key to the city from Pompano Beach, the same city where he grew up in public housing, the same city where he got expelled from school in 5th grade, the same city that shaped everything he is. They gave him a key. He accepted it. And then the cycle continued. When giving the youth football team his pep talk about drugs, he said, "Say no to drugs," with a blunt tucked behind one ear and a bottle in his right hand. They too good. It's the most Kodak Black moment imaginable. He's warning kids about drugs while physically displaying the contradiction in real time. And the thing is, it's not a performance. It's not calculated irony. It's just who he is, all of it at once. The warning and the habit, the generosity and the self-destruction, the talent and the spiral, all of it coexisting right there in the same frame. The rappers who've spoken about Kodak over the years aren't working from a script. They're reacting to something they're watching in real time. Boosie Badazz has probably said more about Kodak publicly than almost anyone else in the rap world. And what's interesting about the Boosie-Kodak dynamic is that it contains both genuine disapproval and genuine love. They're not enemies in the way that rap beef usually works. Boosie fired back with full force on Twitter, X, doubling down on his drug abuse allegations and clowning Kodak for being in protective custody when he was behind bars. Protective custody in prison. That's a significant detail that Boosie kept returning to, because in the world that both of them come from, protective custody carries a very specific meaning. It means you needed to be separated from the general prison population for your own safety. It means something about how the other inmates viewed you, about what your reputation was inside, about whether you were seen as somebody to be tested. Boosie used that detail as a weapon, but it's also a window into what Kodak's experience of incarceration actually looked like. Not the rap video version, not the defiant Instagram post version. While Boosie did admit to going too hard on the painting pictures rapper, he ultimately holds him to a higher standard. I was mad at you. What you say and do matter. That's the thing underneath all the noise between them. Boosie holds Kodak to a standard because he sees the talent and the platform and knows what both of those things carry. When you can reach millions of people, when your voice shapes how young kids from the projects think about themselves and their options, what you say and what you do matters. And Boosie, for all his own controversies, understands that he's telling Kodak, "You're bigger than this. Act like it." In a disappointed rant on Instagram Live, Boosie claimed that the Florida native has no morals or principles, a line that landed hard partly because it wasn't about the music and wasn't about the legal record. It was about something more fundamental. Principles, the code that you carry when the cameras are off, the line you won't cross, regardless of what's being offered. Boosie's argument, underneath all the shouting and the cap locks, was that Kodak had demonstrated a willingness to abandon that code when the money was right. The specific catalyst for that exchange was the 6IMC89 collaboration. Boosie Badazz was outraged over Kodak Black working with Tekashi 6ix9ine Nate. In hip-hop culture, collaborating with 6ix9ine, someone who cooperated with federal prosecutors and testified against fellow gang members, is one of the few things that carries a clear, unambiguous stigma. And Kodak did it. Whack 100 defended Kodak Black by posting proof of the $1 million the rapper received for the feature. $1 million for a feature. And Whack 100's defense was essentially, he got paid. So what's the problem? Boosie's answer to that was everything. He went in. This NGA ain't got no morals, don't got no principles. Damn, thought that little NGA wasn't like that, bro. NGAJ ain't no street NGAJ at all. The disappointment in that statement is real. It's not just beef, it's betrayal. Boosie had looked at Kodak and seen something. A kid from the streets who made it, who stayed real, who hadn't sold himself out. And then he watched him walk into a studio with the one person in rap who symbolizes selling yourself out, and he couldn't reconcile it. The 6ix9ine situation wasn't just a feud between Boosie and Kodak. It was a moment that functioned like an X-ray. Suddenly, you could see the internal structure of how Kodak moved through the world, what he valued, what he was willing to trade, and who was around him when those decisions got made. Kodak Black worked with 6ix9ine on a new song, Shakalaka. The two appeared together in the track's music video. Not just a feature, a music video appearance, a visual cosign, a photograph. Something the internet would never let either of them forget. To pick sides on a question that nobody wanted to answer directly. Does the money justify the move? Boosie didn't hold back in response. You wait until the day before I go to court to drop a weak ace diss song, he tweeted. UA Knob Never CCCH, clout chasing crackhead. The timing accusation cuts deep. Boosie saying Kodak waited until he was distracted by legal troubles to take a shot. That's a very specific kind of accusation. In street culture, it's not just calling someone out for bad music, it's calling them a coward. And then the other part of that tweet, the crackhead label, is the thing that's followed Kodak through multiple news cycles, multiple arrests, multiple Instagram lives. Boosie Badazz and Kodak Black's beef showed no signs of slowing down, with Boosie once again branding him a crackhead. After Black posted a video of Badazz in character as someone else, talking with a different accent and jokingly suggesting that he would snitch on someone, the Baton Rouge rapper took to X to respond. Kodak tried to use a clip that made Boosie look like he was imitating someone who cooperated with law enforcement. Boosie clapped back with explanations and insults. The back and forth became its own media event, a rolling feed of accusations and defenses that neither man fully controlled. When Kodak dropped in on Boosie's Instagram Live, that became a grave mistake as Boosie immediately turned his attention to his Floridian foe. Yak made it even easier for the back and forth to begin as he voiced his persistent frustrations with the Southern MC's past comments about him. However, all these years later, Boosie isn't changing his stance. Boosie said, "I don't give a feek. I get mad when I see you look like you drugging and thugging. You know you wasn't supposed to feek with that. And I ain't gotta clean my face for nobody. Kodak Black, bro. I'm a gangsta. Anything I say, I stand on it." The phrase "look like you drugging" and thugging is interesting. It's not a confident accusation. It's visual observation. He's saying, I can see you, man. I can see what this looks like from the outside. And what it looks like is someone going down a road that ends badly. He's not posturing. He's scared. Kodak proceeded to go live and put Boosie on blast over his relationship with his openly lesbian daughter, Eviana Hatch. He criticized the veteran rapper for publicly denouncing her despite having a gay manager, as seen in clips. According to Kodak, if he were in Boosie's shoes, he'd accept his child no matter who they choose to love. That counterattack was calculated to hit Boosie in the most personal place possible: his family, his parenting, his relationship with his own child. And it landed. It landed hard. It shifted the conversation away from Kodak's behavior and onto Boosie's. That pivot from "you're in bad shape, you need help" to "yeah, but look at your family situation" is a deflection tactic that's visible in every Instagram live Kodak has done when pressed on his lifestyle. He doesn't engage with the concern directly. He finds the thing that makes the other person look worse and swings at it. It's smart, in a way. It's also a sign that engaging honestly with the concern is something he's not willing to do. Kodak often comes across like someone operating without much of a filter between thought and action. That's true. But there's also a version of him that filters very carefully, that knows exactly which buttons to push to change the subject. The Nipsey Hussle moment is probably the clearest example of Kodak, saying something without a filter that cost him in ways that a legal charge alone couldn't. Following the news of Nipsey Hussle's death, he suggested waiting a whole year before trying to pursue sexual relations with the late rapper's longtime partner Lauren London. Nipsey had been murdered days earlier. Lauren London was publicly grieving, and Kodak, in the unfiltered way that he operates, said out loud what apparently crossed his mind. The reaction from the hip-hop community was immediate and severe. Following the backlash, Kodak later apologized. But an apology after that kind of statement doesn't erase the statement. It just confirms that the statement was made. And for a lot of artists and fans who were already on the fence about Kodak, who wanted to love the music but had questions about the man, that Nipsey moment was the tipping point. It was the moment where the no-filter thing stopped being relatable and started being something else. One of the biggest controversies came in 2019 after the death of Nipsey Hussle, when Kodak made comments about wanting to pursue Lauren London while she was publicly grieving in 2017. He went on Instagram Live while a woman performed a sex act on him. A few months later, he faced accusations of colorism after he stated that he don't really like black girls, while also claiming that he preferred women with a lighter complexion because they're easier to break down. Each of those moments taken separately could be explained away. A young rapper acting out ignorant commentary from someone who was barely 20 years old. But the pattern of them, the accumulation, creates a portrait, and the portrait it creates is of someone who has genuine contempt for certain people, and a recklessness about expressing that contempt publicly that goes beyond just lacking a filter. The colorism comments hit particularly hard because of who Kodak is. He's a Haitian American man. He's from the Caribbean community in South Florida, a community that has its own complicated relationship with colorism going back generations. Saying those things in that context, from that background, it wasn't just offensive to the people who heard it. It was a kind of self-directed wound, like hating a part of yourself, loudly enough that everyone has to hear it. And rappers heard it. Fans heard it. The people who'd been defending his music and looking past the legal record heard it. And a number of them stopped looking past it. Not because they stopped liking the music. The music didn't change. But because who you are when you're not performing eventually becomes impossible to separate from who you are when you are. Over time, the controversy stopped feeling separate from his public image and became part of it. They didn't add to it, they became it. The beef with Boosie, the Nipsey comments, the colorism controversy, the 6 Inc 9 In collaboration. Every one of these events generated a fresh wave of rappers and industry figures going on record about what they thought of Kodak. And the interesting thing is that most of them don't hate him. Most of them express something closer to exhausted concern, the frustration of watching someone waste something. His music still moves, and younger artists continue citing him as an influence. That's still true. The music does move. Younger artists do cite him. Despite recurring legal troubles, Kodak Black has remained commercially active over the past decade, building a devoted fan base through a prolific release schedule and a string of charting singles. Emerging from Florida's rap scene in the mid-2010s, he became known for songs including Tunnel Vision and Super Gremlin, the latter becoming one of the biggest rap hits of the early 2020s. Super Gremlin, a song that dominated early 2022, a song that was everywhere. Clubs, cars, sporting events, viral videos. A song that reminded everyone why Kodak's voice is one of the most distinctive in the genre. He has that thing, the undeniable thing, the thing that makes people stop scrolling. And yet, when the conversation about him happens in hip-hop circles, when rappers and industry people talk about Kodak Black, the music is almost never where the conversation goes first. It goes to the behavior. It goes to the arrests. It goes to the live streams and the viral videos, and the attorneys having to issue statements about chicken and traffic. The art is getting buried under the life, and nobody who cares about him genuinely cares. Not just about his output, but about him, wants to watch that happen. Despite the controversy, Yak has been going hard with music. He shared his EP Dios on Octave, an 8-track solo effort, highlighted by tracks like Drive the Boat, Harlem Nights, and Inside I Suffer. Inside I Suffer. The name of that track sits differently once you know the full context of his life, because that's the other thing about Kodak Black that makes the tragedy real. The music is often the place where he's most honest about his pain. The albums and the mixtapes and the EPs are full of moments where he drops the armor and tells you exactly where he is emotionally, exactly what's weighing on him, exactly how much of what he carries never leaves him. He offered up a surprise release that was emotionally raw. That's the Kodak that the people defending him point to. The one who can reach inside himself and pull out something true and put it into words that other people recognize as their own truth. That version of Kodak Black, the one making music called Inside I Suffer, is the version that deserves every opportunity to keep going, to keep making things, to keep reaching people with something honest. But that version has to share a body with the version that ends up at the Children's Safety Village at night with pink bags and MDMA. And the strain of containing both versions, the artist and the circumstances, the talent and the pattern, is something that's been visible in Kodak's face and behavior for years. The rappers who've spoken about it aren't wrong to be worried. The fans who are scared aren't overreacting. Something real is happening, and it's been building for a long time. Feuds with other rappers, tense or alleged intoxicated live streams, erratic interviews, and social media behavior left fans debating whether they're watching authenticity or self-destruction. That debate is unresolved. It might always be unresolved, because with Kodak Black, authenticity and self-destruction aren't separate things to choose between. They're woven together in a way that's almost impossible to untangle. The self-destruction is authentic. The authenticity is sometimes self-destructive. They feed each other. The people who've been in his corner, Lil TJ defending him on social media, Gucci Mane co-signing his federal commutation, Whack 100 defending the 6ig9 scene check, all of them are, in their own way, trying to draw a fence around the talent and keep the chaos outside it. But chaos doesn't respect fences. And in Kodak's case, the chaos and the talent come from the same source, from the same Golden Acres upbringing, the same abandoned childhood, the same streets that raised him when no institution would. Growing up in a challenging environment shaped Kodak's worldview and inspired much of his music. The music is the proof that something profound came out of that environment. The arrests are the proof that the environment never fully released him. Both things are true. And the rappers who keep talking about him publicly, loudly, sometimes cruelly, sometimes tenderly, are all responding to the same unresolvable tension. The same question that doesn't have a clean answer. How do you watch someone brilliant make choices that terrify you? And what do you do about it when they won't let you do anything at all? Recently, Kodak joined Kai Cenat on a Twitch stream and had viewers concerned about his erratic behavior due to supposed drug use, which he addressed afterward. Kai Cenat is one of the biggest streamers on the platform. Millions of people watching. And in that moment, with that audience, something happened that made people genuinely fear for Kodak Black. Not the performative concern that comes with online drama, actual, stomach-drop fear. When fans appeared to see him take a Percocet pill while on stream, he responded, "I take one perk, and y'all be so finking butthurt." Though fans seemed genuinely concerned and suggested he go to rehab, Black took their comments negatively and blocked many users. He even took another pill while addressing the pill controversy on Instagram Live. Taking a pill on a Twitch stream, being told by fans that they're scared, going live on Instagram to address those concerns, and then taking another pill while doing it. The sequence of events is almost cinematic in how cleanly it illustrates the problem. It's not that he's unaware of the concern, he knows it's there, he addressed it on his own platform, in his own time, in his own way. The issue is that his way of addressing the concern is to dismiss it while demonstrating it. And when people respond to that with more concern, he shuts the door. He blocks them. He goes quiet. And then another video surfaces, and the cycle starts again. A worrisome video of him surfaced online, showing him appearing to nod off on stage in Texas, as a couple of crew members tried to hold him up. The nodding off on-stage video spread faster than most of his music releases, because people weren't sharing it to celebrate. They were sharing it because they didn't know what else to do with it. When something that worrying happens in a public venue, on a stage, in front of people who paid money to see a show, what do? You share it. You say something. You hope someone who can actually help sees it and acts. The fentanyl positive, the Percocet on stream, the oxycodone in the truck, the MDMA in the pink bag. These aren't isolated incidents pointing in different directions. They're a constellation of data points that, when you map them together, form a very clear shape, In the Broward painkiller pill case, Kodak allegedly violated his bail terms by failing to show up to a drug test and later testing positive for fentanyl. Fentanyl, the substance that's been killing people in staggering numbers across the country for nearly a decade. Not an abstract danger, a concrete one. The thing about fentanyl is that it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come labeled. It shows up inside other things, pressed into pills, cut into powders, and it kills people who didn't know they were taking it and people who absolutely knew they were taking it. Either way, the margin for error is almost zero, and for someone who appears to be in a cycle of substance use that's been documented across multiple arrests, multiple video clips, multiple court cases, the proximity to fentanyl is not a small thing to note. Kodak Black raised eyebrows with meth lyrics in an on-the-radar freestyle in September 2025. Meth lyrics, not as a storytelling device, not as a character study about someone else's life. Lyrics that were read as autobiographical by the people who listen closely to what he says. And the people who listen closely to Kodak Black's music know that he's almost always talking about himself. That's the raw honesty that makes the music hit the way it does. So when those lyrics surfaced, the conversations that followed weren't casual. Artists talk to each other. They hear things, they see things, they process things in group chats and on Instagram lives, and at industry events that never make it into the press. And what's being said about Kodak Black in those conversations, based on what's leaked into the public record, based on what Boosie has said, based on what Lil TJ said, based on what the fan comments on every concerning video say, is that there is a genuine, shared fear about where he's headed. Boosie said directly, "I don't give a feck. I get mad when I see you. Look like you drugging and thugging. You know you wasn't supposed to fuck with that. You know you wasn't supposed to fick with that." That line, that's not a critic. That's not a media commentator. That's a man who knows the streets, who knows what certain substances do to certain people, who can read the signs from experience, saying out loud, "You knew better. You know better." And Kodak's response to that kind of intervention, whether it comes from Boosie, or from a concerned fan, or from an attorney, is always some version of the same thing. "Leave me alone. I'm fine. Mind your business. I'm just yak, bro," he said. "Ain't shit changed. That's how I came in this beach. I wake up like this." That last line is the one that stays with you. I wake up like this. Meaning, this is baseline. This is normal. This is not an emergency. This is Tuesday. But the people watching from outside have a different read on what I wake up like this looks like when you apply it to a pattern, stretching across years, across multiple substances, across court dates and probation requirements, and drug tests. Waking up like this doesn't sound like freedom. It sounds like a man who doesn't know what a different morning could feel like, and maybe hasn't for a very long time. The Kai Cenat stream moment opened up a debate in hip-hop that had been simmering for years, but hadn't yet broken fully into the mainstream conversation. The debate isn't just about Kodak specifically. It's about what the culture does. When one of its own is visibly struggling, who's responsible? The label? The management? The older artists who could pick up the phone and say something? The fans who consume the content and keep the numbers up? Everyone. No one? Lil TJ recently stood up for Kodak and the comments about his drug use and behavior on Kai Cenat's stream. Stop looking at Yak like he a weirdo. No, sometimes that's how rappers act. In our society, that's how we act. Lil TJ wasn't wrong that normalizing behavior in music culture is real. But the defense, that's how we act in our society, sidesteps something important. Just because something is normal in a community doesn't mean it isn't also damaging. Normalizing damage doesn't undamage it. The counter-argument is that calling out Kodak publicly, making him a cautionary tale, treating his pain as content, which is inevitably what happens when these conversations go viral, does its own kind of damage. It strips him of agency. It turns his struggle into a narrative that exists for other people's consumption. And Kodak is aware of that. He knows what it means when his face ends up as the thumbnail on a What Happened to video. He knows he's being used as a warning label, and he resents it. He decided to take aim at everyone who thinks he needs help or is going through something right now. There's a particular kind of prison that exists for people who've come up from nothing, who've made it out, financially, creatively, publicly, and who are still somehow trapped, not by external bars, but by internal ones, by patterns formed so early, in conditions so extreme, that no amount of chart success, or platinum plaques, or honorary keys can fully reach them. Raised in the Golden Acres public housing projects by his Haitian immigrant mother, Kodak's early life was marked by adversity. The research on what poverty, abandonment, and early trauma do to the developing brain is clear and has been clear for decades. The patterns formed in those conditions, the hypervigilance, the difficulty with trust, the relationship with substances as coping mechanisms, don't disappear when the circumstances change. They come with you. They live in the body. They inform every decision, even when you're standing in a Beverly Hills studio, surrounded by people who love your music and want you to be okay. He began rapping at 6 years old. 6 years old, the same age a lot of kids are learning to tie their shoes. He was already building the one thing he believed could get him out. But the thing that gets you out doesn't always set you free. You can leave the projects and take the projects with you, not as a metaphor, but as a lived reality, as a set of responses and reflexes that the housing project installed in you so early that you can't always feel, where they end and you begin. He identifies as a Hebrew Israelite after studying scripture during incarceration. That detail, that during one of his prison stays, he was reading religious texts, studying, finding something to hold on to, is easy to overlook, but it matters. It tells you that there are parts of him reaching for structure, for meaning, for something beyond the cycle. He's not someone who's given up on himself entirely. He's someone who keeps reaching for different things in different moments, and some of those things are genuinely good, and some of them are genuinely damaging. The tragedy of Kodak Black at 28 isn't that he's a bad person. The people closest to the situation, even Boosie, even in his sharpest moments, don't seem to actually believe he's a bad person. What they see is someone who was given an enormous gift and was also given a wound so deep that the gift and the wound are in constant war with each other. Listeners view him as a gifted rapper of his generation, someone whose raw honesty comes through no matter how chaotic his public life becomes. The honesty and the chaos come from the same wound. And the drug issue, whether it's prescription opioids or MDMA, or whatever the next substance in the next arrest report turns out to be, isn't separate from that wound. It's the wound's way of talking. It's what happens when the pain doesn't have anywhere else to go. The music handles some of it. The philanthropy handles some of it. The charity drives, the AC units, the turkeys, the school notebooks. Those handle some of it, but some of it still needs somewhere to go. And in Kodak's case, where it keeps going is somewhere. No attorney can protect him from indefinitely. Black has sold over 30 million singles since 2014 and has had several multi-platinum and platinum certified singles, including Z's, No Flockin', and Roll in Peace. 30 million singles from a kid who was reading thesauruses in the projects to teach himself. The vocabulary of survival. The distance between those two data points is staggering, and so is the distance between those chart numbers in the Orange County Jail. Booking photo that circulated in May 2026. Rapper Kodak Black was booked into the Orange County Jail following an arrest on a felony drug trafficking charge. The Orange County Sheriff's Office arrested Bill Capri, known professionally as Kodak Black, on a charge of trafficking in MDMA. The name Bill Capri on a jail booking record, not Kodak Black the rapper, not Yak the artist, Bill Capri. The name on the legal documents, the name that exists when the stage name falls away, and what's left is a person sitting in a cell waiting for someone to post a bond. That's what the rappers are reacting to, not the music, not the controversies in the abstract. They're reacting to the image of a real person, a person they know or know of, sitting in a room he's been in versions of since he was a teenager, facing a charge that carries real prison time, with 12 previous felony convictions already written into his record. They're reacting to the cost, the accumulated cost of a life that's had too many moments like this and not enough moments of genuine peace. His most recent album, Just Getting Started, was released in late 2025 and reached number 77 on the Billboard 200 chart. Just Getting Started. That's the title he chose at 28. After everything that's been cataloged, documented, archived, and played back on 1,000 What Happened to videos, he called the album Just Getting Started. And there's something in that defiance that's worth sitting with, because the defiance is real. The belief that there's more music, more life, more of whatever he's reaching for. That belief is genuine. But just getting started also means looking at what's already happened and somehow not being flattened by it. It means processing the federal prison time, the South Carolina plea, The shootings, the arrests, the drug test failures, the viral videos, the beef with Boosie, the Nipsey comments, the 6ix9ine in collaboration, the MDMA in the pink bag. All of it, and still believing that the next chapter is different. That takes either extraordinary resilience or extraordinary denial. Sometimes both at once. In 2026, Kodak Black remains relevant in the music industry. Relevant, not retired, not finished. Still making music, still on playlists, still being streamed by people who were kids when Tunnel Vision first dropped, and are now young adults who grew up with his sound in their ears. The relevance is real. None of it has fully stopped his career. Kodak still has a loyal fan base. That loyalty earned through music that made people feel less alone is one of the few things in his story that stayed consistent. His defense team isn't lying down. We've faced cases that are 10 times this case, and I've won, by the way, his attorney said, in court, laughing even in the way that good defense lawyers do when they want to signal confidence. And Bradford Cohen has a track record. He's navigated Kodak through legal waters before. The arguments about discrepancies in the investigation, the questions about whether the bag truly belonged to Kodak, those are real arguments that a good attorney can make. But there's something else the judge said that landed quietly. Amid the bond hearing chaos, the judge noted that although Black did not claim ownership of a bag found at the scene, you were requesting that the funds within the bag be turned over to you. The judge said that directly to Kodak's legal team, out loud, in open court. That's not nothing. A judge who takes note of the behavior at the scene, the denial of the bag, and the simultaneous claim on the cash inside it, is a judge who's already formed some opinions about what the situation looked like. Capri entered a written plea of not guilty and asked for a jury trial. On Thursday, he also waived appearing in person at a future arraignment hearing. In state court. Jury trial. That's the play. Take your chances, with 12 people instead of one judge. It's a high-risk strategy. In a case with this much documentation, the Instagram photos, the lab results, the testimony of the officers on scene, but it's also the kind of strategy that makes sense when your prior record makes a plea deal potentially catastrophic. Because a plea deal on a 12th felony in a drug trafficking case in Florida with mandatory minimums in play, that's not a situation where you take whatever the prosecution offers and hope for the best. You fight it, and fighting it means jury selection, opening arguments, cross-examination, the whole machine. It means more time in the legal system, more attorneys' fees, more headlines, more of the conversation being about courtrooms instead of studios. Legal trouble has followed Kodak Black for so long that it's become difficult to talk about his career without talking about arrests alongside it. That difficulty isn't getting smaller, it's growing. Every new case adds more volume to the side of the scale that's already heavy. And the music, as good as it is, as loyal as the fan base is, has to work harder and harder to compete with that weight. The broader conversation about Kodak Black, the one that goes past the legal specifics and into something more human, keeps circling back to one thing. What would a different version of this life have looked like? What if the talent had been caught earlier by the right person, in the right system? What if the schools hadn't expelled him? What if the father had stayed? What if the housing project had been a suburb, or the suburb had been a city with better resources, or the city had offered something besides the two options that the streets always offer? Those are questions that have no answers. You can't rerun the life. You can't go back to Pompano Beach in 2003 and change what was there and what wasn't there for a 6-year-old kid practicing rap in a housing project. Growing up in a challenging environment shaped Kodak's worldview and inspired much of his music. That shaping was permanent. It made the music. It also made the pattern. And the people around him now, the rappers who speak up, the fans who share the concerning videos, the attorneys who show up to bond hearings can't undo the shaping. They can only react to what it produced. They can express concern and anger and disappointment and love and fear. They can go on Instagram Live and say, "Dude need help furfar" in capital letters. They can draft statements about discrepancies in investigations. They can block each other on Twitter. None of it changes the fundamental equation. Shortly after his sentence was commuted, the rapper dropped his lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons over alleged abuse he suffered at the Kentucky high-security prison Big Sandy. The lawsuit claimed guards beat him up, tortured him, and placed him in 4-point restraints for hours on end with no access to a bathroom. Prison, even the experience of being in prison, of being subjected to whatever that environment did to him, didn't function as the deterrent it theoretically exists to be. He came out and the pattern continued, not because he's stupid or reckless or doesn't understand consequences, but because the thing driving the pattern is older and deeper than any single stretch of incarceration can reach. The rappers who've spoken about him most directly, Boosie most of all, understand this at some level. Boosie did admit to going too hard on the painting pictures rapper, but ultimately holds him to a higher standard. Holding someone to a higher standard is an act of love. It's saying, I believe you're capable of more than this. I'm not going to lower the bar just because it's easier for both of us. I'm going to keep telling you the truth, even when you block me, even when you diss me in a song, even when you hop into my Instagram live and try to clown me. That kind of love is hard to receive, especially when you grew up in circumstances where love and danger were sometimes indistinguishable, where the people who were supposed to hold you to a higher standard were absent or overwhelmed or fighting their own version of the same battle. His father abandoned the family early on, leaving his mother to raise him in the Golden Acres public housing projects. The template for what it looks like when a man holds you accountable and sticks around. He didn't get that early, and everything that came after is shaped, in part, by that absence. He identifies as a Hebrew Israelite after studying scripture during incarceration. That detail returned to again because it points to something that's often missed in the coverage: the searching. He's been searching for something, for a framework, for a way to understand who he is and what he owes to himself and the world. The scripture reading, the philanthropy, the charity foundation, the keys to the city, the turkeys, all of it points to a person who wants to be something good, who has a picture in his head of a version of himself that he's reaching for. Despite the turbulence in his journey, Kodak Black has remained an influential figure in rap culture, shaping trends and inspiring a younger generation of artists. Influential. Still, despite everything, younger artists cite him as a reason they started rapping. Kids in housing projects in Florida and Georgia and Texas are listening to Tunnel Vision and Super Gremlin and hearing something that makes them feel like they can do it too. That the projects don't have to be the ending. That your voice, even if it sounds like nothing anyone's heard before, might be the exact thing someone needs to hear. That's the legacy he's building, even now, even with the charges pending, and the bond posted and the jury trial scheduled. The music is still out there doing what music does, reaching people in their cars and their headphones and their late-night moments of feeling completely alone. He has had several multi-platinum and platinum-certified singles, including Z's, No Flockin', and Roll in Peace. 30 million singles. That number is a measure of connection. 30 million moments where something he made reached inside someone else and met them where they were. The question that the rappers are really asking when they talk about Kodak, when Boosie goes live and says he needs help, when Lil TJ defends him and says this is just how they live when the industry watches, the booking photos circulate and keep scrolling, is whether those 30 million connections are enough to pull a person back from the edge of something. Whether art can anchor a life that the life itself keeps trying to untether. The honest answer is that art doesn't work that way. Music doesn't prevent drug trafficking charges. It doesn't reverse years of patterned behavior. It doesn't make the pink bag disappear or undo what the lab results confirmed. Art can express pain. It can communicate truth. It can create connection, but it can't fix the wound it came from. It can only illuminate it. Controversy and legal troubles followed the rapper on every step of his journey to stardom, but his ruthless flows and snarling attitude propelled albums into the upper reaches of the charts. That sentence could have been written about him at 22 or 24 or 26. It's still true at 28, and the question is whether it'll still be true at 30. Whether the journey continues, whether the albums keep coming, whether the voice that sounds like it came from somewhere underground keeps reaching people, or whether the weight of the pattern becomes too heavy for even the talent to carry. Someone needs to help Kodak ASAP. One Twitter X user wrote after the video of him appearing to nod off on stage circulated that line. Simple, direct, scared represents what a huge portion of the people paying attention to this story actually feel. Not judgment, not entertainment. Fear. The specific fear of watching someone who has something real. Real talent. Real pain. Real connection to millions of people move towards something that could take all of it away. The rappers who've spoken up, in whatever form that speaking, has taken Boosie's confrontational concern. Lil TJ's defense of solidarity. The artists who've stayed quieter, but whose expressions at industry events, when Kodak's name comes up, tell you everything. They're all processing the same fear because they've all seen what happens when someone like Kodak Black reaches the end of a road like this one. It doesn't always end in a comeback. Sometimes it ends in a booking photo that nobody wanted to see. None of it has fully stopped his career. Kodak still has a loyal fan base. His music still moves, and younger artists continue citing him as an influence. That's where we are right now. Loyal fans, moving music, young artists citing him, and a drug trafficking charge in Florida, and a history that reads like a document of everything a person can survive and still not be free of, and a jury trial on the calendar, and rappers on their phones watching the updates roll in, and the same question underneath all of it, unresolved, persistent, getting louder every year. What happens next? In 2026, Kodak Black remains relevant in the music industry. He's still here, still making noise, still in the conversation, from viral singles to platinum records. His journey reflects both triumph and controversy. That's a diplomatic way to put it. What his journey actually reflects is a person of extraordinary talent who has been fighting two wars his entire adult life. One against a legal system that keeps finding reasons to lock him up, and one against something inside himself that keeps giving it ammunition. The rappers watching don't have a cure. Neither does the internet. Neither does the attorney who shows up laughing at bond hearings. The only person who has access to the thing that would actually change the trajectory is the person at the center of it. And the last time anyone asked him directly about whether he was okay, whether he needed help, whether things were different than they looked, his answer was to take another pill on Instagram Live and tell everyone to mind their business. That's where we are. And where it goes from here, whether it goes toward that just getting started promise or toward something that nobody's ready to talk about yet, is the thing that everyone who cares is watching and waiting and hoping. Kodak Black, rising from the streets to hip-hop stardom. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com 698,449 Kodak Black hip-hop stardom. Kodak Black addresses drug use that led to bizarre behavior on Kai Cenat's stream. https://www.uo.com/entertainment. Kodak Black addresses drug-led 182,822,000.html. Kodak Black keeps circling the same cycle of controversy. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com scans 994,458 Kodak Black keeps circling the same cycle of controversy. Kodak Black, age, net worth, and career timeline. https://maboom.com's place Kodak Black age, net worth, career timeline. Rapper Kodak Black booked into Orange County Jail on drug trafficking charge. https://www.clickorlando.com's News Talk Local 2 2026 5.7 rapper Kodak Black booked into Orange County Jail on drug trafficking charge records show. Rapper Kodak Black arrested in Orange County on drug trafficking charge. https://www.local110.com Florida, West Florida 2026 5.7 rapper Kodak Black arrested in Orange County on drug trafficking charge. Rapper Kodak Black arrested on drug trafficking charge. ABC News. https://abcnews.com/US lock rapper Kodak Black arrested drug trafficking charge. Story ID 132,744,926. Kodak Black pleads not guilty after Orange County arrest. NBC Miami. https://www.nbcmiami.com/news. Local Kodak Black arrested on drug trafficking charge in Orange County 3,806,148. Kodak Black arrested on drug trafficking charge. CBS Miami. https://www.cbsnews.com's Miami news/rapper Kodak Black arrested Florida, drug trafficking Orlando area Orange County. Kodak Black turns himself in on Florida drug trafficking charge. https://www.lawcommentary.com's article K. Kodak Black turns himself in on Florida drug trafficking charge. Timeline: Kodak Black's arrests, alleged crimes, legal troubles. Miami New Times. https://www.miaminewtimes.com/music. A timeline of Kodak Black's arrests, alleged crimes, and other legal troubles. 11,178,496. Boosie Badazz and Kodak Black exchange. More insults as feud escalates. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com's Nansk 982,419. Boosie Badazz Kodak Black insults. Boosie Badazz reacts to Kodak Black's latest concerning viral video. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com's 979,341. Boosie Badazz Kodak Black concerning video. Boosie Badazz fires back at Kodak Black's clown diss. Over 6 MC 19 criticism. Hip Hop DX. https://hiphopdx.com's news/Boosie Badazz Kodak Black 6 Ike X90 clown diss response. Boosie Badazz sparks tense back and forth after Kodak Black drops in on Instagram Live. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com/982,023. Boosie Badazz Kodak Black reignited. Moo Boosie claps back at Kodak Black. You definitely hit the glass Deetsay Key complex. https://www.complex.com. Scott Mutix of A. Trailston's Blue Boosie Buzzbait Daz Kodak Black diss. Crackhead minus Boosie Badazz laughs at Whack 100 posting $1 million check. To defend Kodak Black's 6ix9 in collab. https://allhiphop.com's news/Boosie logs at Whack 100 posting $1 million check to defend Kodak Black's 6ix9 in color. Kodak Black disses Boosie on new single 11 a.m. in Malibu. The Source. https://thesource.com/2024 BHT20S7K Kodak Black disses Boosie on new single 11 a.m. in Malibu. Kodak Black pops off on people calling him an addict. Hot New Hip Hop. https://www.hotnewhiphop.com's 885,926 Kodak Black rant imscab addict response hip hop news. South Carolina prosecutors want custody of rapper Kodak Black after Trump clemency courthouse news. https://www.court1000news.com. Scott of South Carolina wants custody of rapper Kodak Black after Trump clemency. Kodak Black's sexual assault case and plea deal explained complex. https://www.complex.com/music's a Jade McKinney/Kodak Black sexual assault case. What you need to know. 9 is Kodak Black sentenced to probation after pleading guilty to assaulting a teen. Fox News. https://www.foxnews.com/entertainment's Kodak Black probation pleading guilty assaulting teen. Amp rapper Kodak Black pleads guilty in teens assault case, no jail time. AOL. https://www.aol.com/rapper Kodak Black pleads guilty 231,531,829.html. Kodak Black still faces sexual assault case despite Trump commutation. Yahoo News. https://news.uo.com square Kodak Black still faces sexual 144,551,498.html. Trump pardons Lil Wayne, commutes Kodak Black's prison sentence. Yahoo News. https://news.yahoo.com's Trump pardons Lil Wayne Kodak 60,510,522.html. Rapper Kodak Black hands out 50 turkeys to South Florida families. Fox News. https://www.foxnews.com. See Entertainment. Rapper Kodak Black turkeys, South Florida families print. Exclusive, Kodak Black on Trump, pardon and charity work, CBS 12. https://cbs12.com snooze, local exclusive Kodak Black on Trump, pardon and charity work, Kodak Black Wikipedia, https://nbigpedio.org wiki/get Kodak Black, Spotify, https://open spotify.com/artist floor46shbwwsqbkxi7eagbeq7. Kodak Black real name, age, net worth, height, family, career, full charm names, https://fullcharmnames.com's Kodak Black.